Think of that bee constantly flying around your garden every day without you even noticing. It chooses a flower, lands on it, and then suddenly stops and disappears. You can perceive it because the scene is so ordinary that even your brain can detect it. But where is that bee actually going? The answer, because it's just collecting honey, is less than 1/1000th of the truth. You might not even realize it, but there's a climate system in that hive that maintains a constant temperature with a tolerance of 1 degree deviation. It's like a logistical network with no signs, yet non-existent. And the parts of the attentive bee, separating simultaneously, function as if they were a single brain, without being connected to a single center. We're not saying nature is beautiful to this. We're asking, how is this possible? Because on this channel, we're fully explaining the things you don't understand about that bee you see in your garden every day. Come to the end of the video, because the final part of the video will address where the order in the hive actually comes from, how those thousands of bees manage this complexity without needing anything. This is actually a much bigger problem than you think. Let's start the video with our first point. 1. The architecture of the hive is not a coincidence, it's practically engineering. When spring arrives, the honeycomb structure inside the hive isn't just there for storage. To manage this, one question is enough. How do you divide an area with the maximum volume using the least amount of material? Mathematicians have debated this question for centuries. The answer is the hexagon. Bees have achieved this durable, universal structure without knowing any formulas. To explain, each cell wall has a volume of 0.07 square millimeters, almost half the size of a human hair. It can support 22 times its own weight. In fact, lightness and durability are solved simultaneously and in the same structure. Now, who makes the honeycombs? It's not actually the bees that go out to collect nectar. Young worker bees, that is, the wax machines in the abdomen of worker bees that are about 2 to 8 days old, provide beeswax, and this conversion is quite expensive. 8 grams of honey are used for 1 gram of beeswax. It's being made. It kneads it with its jaws, shapes it by heating, and precisely aligns and places it in its position. The bee does this simultaneously and doesn't guide it from the other side, but in the resulting structure, not a single cell is crooked. And there isn't just one type of cell in the honeycomb. The brood system, the honey storage system, the drone system, the queen cells, they are all different sizes and shapes. The same beeswax, the same bees, but a different design for each function. And those small wooden boxes you see actually contain a self-designing, constantly growing structure, without any plan being drawn up, and with the same flawlessness and perfection every time. 2. The role of the bee in the hive changes with age. Actually, the bee you see in the garden is the oldest member of the hive. But when you learn this, because they all look the same, there's a truth to it. Although they all look the same from the outside, a completely different chronology is at work inside. In the first few days, the bee never leaves the hive. It feeds with a special secretion received in newborns, then moves on to honeycomb cleaning, then beeswax production and construction. Later, it takes on the responsibility of maintaining the hive entrance and only goes outside for the first time on day 21, which is about 1/3 of its life. By that day, it has almost completed a career inside the hive. This change is not actually random, it's programmed. The hormone levels in the bee's brain change and develop with age, and this change determines which task it will take on. When it's time to go outside, the bee doesn't actually decide. Its body simply gets ready. But this schedule can be slightly adjusted when the hive needs a task. If there aren't many bees and there aren't many young workers left in the hive, the older ones return and can feed the larvae again. So the work schedule isn't actually a rigid program. It's a regular sequence. That single bee in the garden is actually the last step in this system. It works on, cleans, and builds upon previous versions, then feeds, and continues to maintain its presence. Going outside is just the final step for it. 3. Hive temperature is a fundamental part of survival. The hive falls silent. It gets cold outside. You don't notice it. The truth is, nothing stays still inside. When the queen bee starts laying eggs in the spring, the larvae need to stay exactly between 34 and 35 degrees Celsius. A 1-degree deviation can disrupt the larva's development. Even if it's below zero outside, the hive has to maintain this temperature. And it does. But how? Worker bees generate heat by vibrating their wing muscles. But they don't flap their wings. They just scratch them. This is similar to a person breaking down in the cold, but much more efficient, much more adaptable. Other bees do the opposite. They blow air into the hive to prevent overheating. The system simultaneously heats and breaks down. Now, the critical point in this is that there is no thermostat. There is no central control. Each bee lives its own life and creates its own flow. Each one makes individual decisions, and together, the results produce a result. Of course, let's make the scale concrete. When it's below zero outside, the larval region can maintain a temperature of 34 degrees. That's a difference of 44 degrees. Inside a small wooden box, without electricity, without fuel, just with muscle heat. I also want to say that it's like it's breathing right now. It's contracting, expanding, maintaining balance. Thousands of tiny heaters are working, hissing at each other, and none of them are even aware of it. 4. The communication system is like a silent communication network. There's a fact that a bee finds a field full of nectar. It turns around, and as soon as it enters the hive, it starts to dance. Naturally, this sounds strange when you first hear it, but it's true. Of course, essentially, this movement, which apiologists call the waggle dance, is a coordinate system. The bee moves in a figure-8 shape on the honeycomb. The time it takes to travel the straight corridor in the middle of this figure-8 represents the distance. 1 second is approximately 1 kilometer. The angle of this straight corridor to the sun indicates the direction. A 30-degree deviation to the right means fly 30 degrees to the right of the sun. There's a situation where the hive is dark. Other bees can't see this dance. They feel it. They pick up the vibration of the honeycomb and derive both the direction and the distance from that vibration. Then they fly, and they arrive at the described location. Because think about it, this isn't abstract admiration. Consider this: the bee is using the position of the sun as a reference, but the sun isn't visible inside the hive. So the bee converts the angle of the sun it sees outside into the angle of movement on a dark honeycomb. It transforms abstract information into a concrete map. Especially, there are very few species other than humans that use symbolic communication. Bees are on that short list. Ultimately, the hive in your garden is currently sharing perhaps dozens of different coordinates. Different bees are dancing for different fields. Crowded, silent, dark. But there is a constantly flowing river of information within it. 5. Colony intelligence is much higher than individual intelligence. First of all, I want to say this. A single worker bee's brain is smaller than a sesame seed, about 1 million neurons. Compared to the 86 billion neurons in the human brain, it's almost negligible. Keep that in mind. Naturally, in the spring, the hive gets very crowded. Space is running out. Capacity is almost full. And the colony makes a decision. We will split in two. We will swarm. But who made this decision? Which bee said, "Enough is enough"? Nobody. As you can understand, the pioneer bees go out and look for a new nest site. They announce their findings by dancing. Different bees suggest different locations. Others watch these dances, evaluate them, and follow the strongest one. Weak suggestions gradually fade away. The strongest suggestion comes to the forefront, and thousands of bees, almost unanimously, make the decision to act at the same time. Ultimately, neuroscientists call this distributed decision-making, and they say that this process bears striking similarities to some mechanisms in the human brain. There isn't a single decision-making center in our brain either. Billions of neurons compete, the dominant signal emerges, and the decision is made. The beehive does exactly that, only with bees instead of neurons. Now, there's also this situation. A brain smaller than a sesame seed is nothing on its own, but tens of thousands of them together, responding to a common pressure, produce a flawless decision. As you can understand, right now, perhaps such a decision is maturing inside that wooden box in your garden, without a leader, without a center, just a colony that senses each other, reads each other's signals, and thinks together. There's a truth to this. I asked at the beginning, where is that bee going? Now you know. To the final part of its life, to the most outward-facing task of the hive, to the logical conclusion of everything it has done inside for years. And when it returns, what it leaves behind is not just nectar. It's a coordinate, a vibration, a message. A hive has been operating this way for millions of years, with its architecture, its age-changing division of labor, its millimeter-precise temperature control, its vibration-coded communication system, and its collective intelligence that goes far beyond individual intelligence. You were seeing a bee in your garden. In fact, you were seeing the only window to the outside of a city. You had been living next to it for years. Now you know. There's also this situation. I want to ask you this. Have you ever noticed a bee telling something to the others as it returns to the hive? Have you seen those crowds gathering in front of the hive, circling for a while, and then dispersing? Now you know what's happening there. Let me know in the comments. See you again in the next video.